It is extremely haunting, and we're diving into basically stuff that most people would disagree with.
That's tough. Yeah. I don't know if that's a road we want to go down. I'm not sure if it's a road I want to go down. Um it's some it's some dark shit. That's what I'll say.
Hello and welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis.
I'm Michael.
And we are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Michael, why are we here?
Today we are reviewing the film Nosferatu.
Come to me. Come to me. Hear my call. Come to me. Professor, my dreams grow darker. Does evil come from within us? Or from beyond?
It's coming. He is coming. He is coming to us.
The remake, I guess you could say. It's been done a couple of times. I was floored by this film. Like, love it or hate it, like this movie floored me. Anyway, let's get into it.
Yes, let's get into it. It is a film directed by Robert Eggers and written by him for the screen. It is an adaptation a bit, basically, of the Dracula story. It stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and William Dafoe. William Dafoe's in this as well. So it's a remake of the 1922 classic. And before we get too far into this, just a quick history. The 1922 classic was a ripoff of the Dracula book that was published in 1897. And the widow of Bram Stoker filed a lawsuit against this company that made this movie, and it was almost lost to history based on the judge's ruling to destroy all of the prints. However, there are a lot of people who didn't destroy the prints and just kept them. And it's still around. You can find it on YouTube. This movie is a direct remake of that 1922 film. So
and apparently they stuck to the old film pretty close.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Now, what kind of got me is I'm a big Bram Stoker Dracula fan. I was like, dude, this is following the book like right on. But
yeah,
then
very closely.
It was pretty close, but like kind of as it went on, you could start to see some deviation.
Yes.
And which is fine.
Well,
I mean,
it
this
combines
is not
characters.
a Dracula story. This is, just to keep in mind. Yeah. And I had to keep kind of reminding myself. I was like, no, well, that's different.
They took they took liberties.
It's not Dracula. Okay.
We'll get into spoilers, but before we do, let's just give our overall thoughts. I should probably read really quickly the synopsis. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her causes untold horror in its wake. That's the synopsis, the plot synopsis for this movie. My initial thoughts are this movie is so damn creepy. And if you are not a horror fan, if you're not somebody who, if you have like a fragile disposition, this is not going to be a movie for you. So do not go see it. It is extremely disturbing. It is extremely haunting, and it is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful movies to come out this year. Every shot looks like a gothic painting. It is so gorgeous of a movie. It is the shadow, the lighting, it's not black and white. It's what do you call it? It's
sometimes black and white. Like
it's like blue and white. It's like
how they managed it. I was just every once in a while you have to like, wait, is this just straight up black and white? Like,
yeah. Yes.
And then you kind of watch a little longer. You're like, okay, but
Yes.
like it gives that old film vibe. And
Yes.
dude, I'm there. Not for the faint of heart, for sure. And this show does not pull any punches.
It doesn't.
Holy shit!
There's some violence that happens to children that Eggers is not afraid to go there. And I don't know if I'm on board with it because I am a father of children, so it affects me in a different way than it might affect some rando who doesn't have kids. Always violence towards children just kind of puts me off, but it's a movie worth seeing. There's a reason that everybody's talking about it, that everybody online is saying that this is one of their favorite films of the year. I don't normally like horror, but this I'm still kind of mulling over. I haven't decided whether I hate it or like it or somewhere in between. Your thoughts? Your thoughts, brother?
I would say it's an amazing film. I don't know that it's a type of film that I would love, if that makes sense. It's not. One is it's not a happy film in like any sense of the word, right? I think William Dafoe got like a couple chuckles out of me.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like everything else is very serious, very bizarre. Like there were times I was just like, what is going on? Like that. That's crazy. Yeah. So I mean, a little bit like a fever dream, like really.
Most of his movies are
just a little bit like a fever dream. You're just like, what is happening? And but there were moments I was kind of chuckling to myself because of how kind of scared I was. Like I don't usually get scared watching films, but I was just like, ooh, this is kind of scary.
It evokes dread. It just evokes dread. It's so dread. It makes you kind of like uneasy the whole time you're watching it.
The film evokes dread. It with the cinematography and how the visuals are, it does a really good job of kind of doing that. It's like it brings you into it. And I'm so glad that the dialogue was very like prim and proper for the time. It kept you in the world that they bring you into their world, and it keeps you in. I'm so glad that they did a good job of doing that, because I can't stand it when you go see a period piece
like Gladiator 2
and they say crap like, I don't know, like I don't know. Just when they start saying things that just bring you out of it, and you're just like,
almost all of Denzel Washington's dialogue brought me out of Gladiator 2. So
anyway, so they did an awesome, just an amazing job of that. And creep factor and stuff. I don't know that it's quite my cup of tea. If that makes sense. I just
almost
not
too intense.
Sure. Maybe a little too intense, maybe too creepy kind of thing. To be honest, I still loved it. Just did. Like the way they managed all of this film, I still, even though there were just things that I kind of detested and just kind of hated, I'm just like, it was like a love-hate relationship a little bit. Like I was there for it. It's like,
I think that's what he's going for. I think that's what he's going for.
Probably. Yeah.
All right, let's get into spoilers. Spoilers now. This movie has so many off-putting moments, like just completely off-putting moments. And I think he likes this kind of shit. So I'm going to spoil a little bit of The Witch. The Witch is technically his first movie with Anya Taylor-Joy. And there's a scene in that where a witch either is about to consume a baby or consumes a baby. And I can't really remember because I looked away. And I had just had a baby at the time, so it was not pleasant. It was not a pleasant watch, and I kind of hated the movie. However, the film itself is amazing because it's all old. They talk like he took directly from journals of the time of old England before the Revolutionary War. So we're talking, I don't know, probably 1600s. Mm-hmm. And he put it into all of his dialogue, and it creates this atmosphere of you believe what is going on. And he did it with this. It's Victorian England. He's put all this dialogue in. There's not a person saying words that they wouldn't have said back then. It's so amazing how he did that. Does this stuff. And he's definitely got a style, and he's brought us into this world, and then he just makes you uncomfortable for most of the movie. You're just uncomfortable for all of the movie. And yeah, I can't say that I don't really get scared by movies anymore, but this movie didn't really scare me. It just creeped me out. So I'm really uncomfortable through all of it. And I think that's the point. And you and I are both Dracula fans. We love the book. It does adhere to the book pretty dang closely. So you can see why the original was sued by Bram Stoker's widow. I mean, it's basically ripped right from
changing small things, but mostly you're
changing names and locations. The same
story.
Really. The plague, I thought the plague was a nice touch.
Yeah, bringing the plague
into this town. It's a fictional German town that when he lands on the boat after everybody's been killed, he's basically caused a plague in this town. And it never explains his powers, which is so bizarre, but you get like he's the incarnate of evil. And with all the shit that we've had to endure with vampire lore in the last 20 years, it's really refreshing to see a vampire that is very off-putting, like extremely off-putting.
One question for you, because I heard this online and it didn't affect me, but did the mustache throw you off?
No, because the character in the book has a mustache that they talk about a lot in the Dracula book.
Oh, I don't remember that. But
yes, because so get this. This is so interesting.
Yeah.
So they did not use the classic Nosferatu look. They used the classic Bram Stoker Dracula look, because he mentions his mustache several times in the book. And we have never known.
Yeah. For whatever reason, Hollywood decided to get rid Dracula without clean shaven.
So the Bela Lugosi one from the 1930s.
Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make.
That is what we've known as classic Dracula. He's got the cape, he's got the eyes, he's got the heavy Hungarian accent. That is the class that we think of, but is also different from the actual book. So the book mentions his mustache a few times. So this is a remake of the people who ripped off Dracula, the book. And they decided not to use Nosferatu, classic Nosferatu look with the pointy ears and the buck teeth. They decided to use the classic Dracula look from the book, which was he had a mustache, but it still comes off like extremely creepy.
Well, to me, he looked like Vladimir, who was, if you read some of the history, that's where a little bit of the lore around Dracula.
You're talking about Vlad
the Impaler.
The Impaler. So Vlad the Impaler did have most of the depictions of him. He has a mustache.
He has a mustache. So it does kind of seem like that's what
maybe that's what Stoker thought he looked like. So he had probably the same picture we have.
Yeah.
And the same it's a portrait painting or something like that. And he has a mustache. So that's interesting. Huh. Yeah. So you're right.
I thought of that, but that's kind of because I've seen pictures of Vlad the Impaler or of, creations. I don't know that we really know
what he looked like. Well, and so the book talks about the smell of decay, and they played that up like he's rotting, like his whole back is rotting. It's very off-putting throughout the most of the movie. It's hard to believe that it's Bill Skarsgård, the guy who played it. Underneath all that makeup. And his voice, he changed his voice for this role. He's got a niche market now, so he's the guy that you get to put a bunch of makeup on. So,
right, it didn't look like him at all. There was never a moment where I was just like, oh, okay, I see it. Nope.
Well, and I think using another language for vampires gives it a more eerie, because this is the same thing that they did in 30 Days of Night. Now, 30 Days of Night is at this point, I think, a 15-year-old movie. And that was definitely scary vampires. I mean, the Twilights of our era have kind of taken away the creepy factor of the vampire.
Yeah.
They've tried to make them more sexy than they are grotesque. And the whole idea of Dracula in the actual Dracula book is he's grotesque, because every time they enter one of his lairs, he talks about the smell of death. This movie plays that up and plays it up beautifully, because she's still enticed by him, even though he's grotesque.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked the play on that. It was, sometimes it felt a little overboard.
How much can we take as an audience? Like,
yeah. It's just a little bit over. It's like she's convulsing, and then a second later, her husband's there and she's convulsing, and then like a second later, he's screwing her. I'm just like,
what is going on?
I don't know. That would,
be
happen, but
let's talk about that scene for a little while. So it's a weird scene, right? But her possession has called into question his manhood, and then he has to prove that he is.
I
guess.
It's
bizarre.
I'd probably have to see it again to see like what.
I don't know. It's not.
What
it's
are they
not
doing
movie.
here? It's not a movie I really want to see again. Honestly.
Yeah, it's not. It's not rewatchable. It's just it keeps you in that uncomfortable state for far too long for me to ever want to be rewatched. So these are movies. He does this. Like, I also thought The Northman was pretty good. But it's not a movie I want to revisit.
Right.
It's always like movies that are good that he makes. I don't want to revisit them because they don't give me. I don't like sitting in that dark state for too long. It's just and he does it. He does it right. He's doing a good job of it, because he's evoking this emotion out of you, this uncomfortable, this kind of sense of dread. And I think that's like his niche market. Like, that's what he does. And I can't imagine he's a very pleasant person to be around, honestly, because if he makes all these movies like this, he's either got to have a really awesome sense of humor and just shrugs it off, or he's got to be the most dour dude you've ever been around, because all of his movies are like this. They're all I've only seen 3. He's made 4 I haven't seen The Lighthouse, but I've been told The Lighthouse is about the same. It's very dreadful, you know.
Mhm.
Um, some let's talk about the actors a little bit. So Lily Rose Depp is Johnny Depp's daughter, and she plays the main female character in this movie, and she does a great job. She's got the dread down, and you see
Yeah.
most of it on her face, so she does a really good job. But I was kind of surprised that two men in this movie played in two of the worst movies of this year and are now in one of the better movies of this year.
Hmm.
So Aaron Taylor Johnson is the friend with the daughters,
Yeah.
and he's Craven.
Okay, that's where I was recognizing him
Yeah,
from.
he's from Craven. He's from Kick-Ass. He's
And but his acting in this Craven, and then it's just night and day different.
night and day.
Like
he's great in this, right?
He's good in this.
He's one of the people that I identified with the most because he's like,
he's the naysayer. He's just like, no way. Why are you guys talking about a monster? We got an actual plague on.
We got an actual plague on our hands that's killing my.
It's great.
I mean, it's just, we're in spoiler territory, but I mean, once his daughters got, oh man, oh my gosh. And they don't shy away from Dracula sucking the blood out of these two children, or Dracula. Orlok is his name in this. And then he throws
Orlok,
and then he drops them. And you hear, I mean,
oh geez, yeah,
it was a brutal scene.
Rough. That was
a
rough.
rough scene. Yeah,
I was like,
for sure.
I was like, because I was thinking while I was watching this.
Yes, I knew something horrible was going to happen. Either the children were going to become possessed by him, or they were
something.
Kill him.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw the children,
yeah,
like the way the film had started to go.
Yes,
and like the feeling you had up to the point you see these children, you're just like,
yeah, something's
not good things.
Yeah, not good things. And then Bill Skarsgård was the Crow this year. So these two guys had two of the
real bad
had some flops on their hands, and then they're in this movie. So it's just funny to think about that. And then, I mean, Nicholas Hoult does a great job as Thomas, the one of the main characters. So these are the characters, the biggest characters in the movie. And then William Dafoe plays obviously the
Van Helsing character.
Van Helsing
He's
character.
kind of a Van Helsing character.
Yes.
But his name is not Van Helsing, obviously.
But they call him Professor. William Dafoe has had a connection to this kind of movie for a very long time. He played at one point they had a movie about the making of the 1922 movie, and he played the actor who played Nosferatu. I think that came out in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, so he's like, I think William Dafoe loves vampire movies because he's in quite a few vampire movies. So it's great that he gets to kind of switch characters. He gets to, instead of being the vampire, he is now the vampire hunter. I did like most of his scenes. He has a jovial, more of a jovial character than the rest of them. Which comes, so there's a scene where he's kind of mumbling to himself, and then the other doctor says something to him. I think it's Latin. Do you know what he said?
Oh yeah, they talk in Latin to each other. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a.
What was
I was
that?
trying to catch it. In fact, I remember thinking, I was like, oh, he said something about this, but I forgot what it was. I don't remember now. So,
I'm wondering, was it like a code? So maybe they're like brothers of a fraternity, and then he says it to him, and then he comes out of his
in a fraternity kind of way. I think so. But
that's what it came across as, at least.
Yeah.
So there's little nuggets in this that, I mean, if I could take the uncomfortableness that this movie provides, that I would probably go back and
Go
watch
back and
again.
see it to see
But I don't know if I could
kind of catch the Easter egg stuff. Yeah.
When Lily Rose Depp goes into her like stupors with her eyes rolling back in her head, I can barely stand watching it. It's so off-putting. So, and she does that like 3 or 4 times in the movie, and I'm like, I can barely, because she does it so well. It comes across like she's having an epileptic seizure. I've had too many moments with epileptic seizures to not be completely put off by that. The movie's wild. I don't know any other better way to put it. What else do you want to touch on? The music is
probably
so great.
We probably should have said this towards the beginning. Definitely strap in for a slow burn, because it does take its time. Like,
yes. There are shots that go on for long periods of time.
When I can't remember. It was probably 10 or 15 minutes into the film, and you still don't quite know what's going on. That I told myself, settle down, settle in for a slow burn. Because after the first few minutes of the film, I knew that's what was going to happen. For whatever reason, nowadays people just can't stand slow burns. With our tension span problems and blah blah blah.
Well, this keeps your attention long enough, because at the very beginning she's having a nightmare that involves him.
Yeah.
So according to this, which I don't think was in the original Dracula book, is that she had an incident as a child, or as a younger,
or even like a series of incidents where she was kind of communicating with Dracula
or Orlok, where she was communicating with him. And so, and then she got married and things kind of settled out. She got out of what they called melancholia, is what they used to call it back in those days. So she gets out of it, and then it suddenly starts up again when her husband is supposed to go. He's a real estate agent, and he's supposed to go to this other country, and he's supposed to talk to this count who's buying property in this German town that they live in,
which is exactly how Dracula starts out.
Which is how Dracula starts out, but not the connection that she has to him isn't a thing in the book. She's already dreading it, and then when he doesn't actually have any reason to think badly about what's going on until he gets to this little town that's right outside of Orlok's castle, and the townspeople have a ceremony to kill what they deem as a vampire or whatever. And the ceremony's wild. They've got a naked woman on a horse. They're all chanting. They've all got torches. It's like, what is going on? And Thomas sees this, and he's like completely blindsided by what's going on. And he thinks it's a dream. He wakes up, and then he goes to the castle, and then he's basically Orlok's prisoner for a long period of time until he escapes. And this all happens in the Dracula book. And then he returns, and Orlok decides to get on a boat and return to this German.
Yeah, I love the
town.
scene. I love the scene where he's on the boat, and it kind of shows him traveling to this German town. That
was a freaky scene where the shipman's got the
shipman is going in, and you see him move behind. That was good. That was good. When I saw it, I was like, something's coming.
Something's coming.
You always do. Like, you always kind of know something's coming.
Yeah.
But the seeing him move behind him was like,
oh yeah,
that was
good. It was
it's
so great because it's got tackle that's moving with the sway of the ship, and he's walking down this long corridor with this tackle just kind of going back and forth, and then all of a sudden you see this human form kind of turn within the tackle. And he's like, oh
yeah,
that was a great moment.
It was good.
Yeah.
A few jump scare moments and then a few jump scare moments that I thought kind of fell flat, but it had its fair share of jump
scare moments.
Yeah.
So if you're a horror fan and you're really into jump scares, this movie's for you. So let's talk a little bit about the ending, because that's where it deviates from the book, the Dracula book the most. He comes to her and she rejects him, and he claims that he won't forcefully take her. I don't know why he's being honorable that way. I don't know if that's even honorable, but he basically says that she's got 3 days to accept him, or he'll kill everybody that's basically close to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts with the family that they're staying with, and the husband's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think they're the Hardings. Frederick Harding is his name. He's got 2 daughters, and he's got a pregnant wife. And these are very good people. He's not he's the naysayer. He's the guy that doesn't believe that this is a supernatural being. And then Orlok kills all 3 of them. And she realizes that there's no stopping him unless she gives herself up to him as a sacrifice, essentially. It's not as exciting of an ending as the Dracula story.
Well, the Dracula story starts out scary, but then it kind of ends in an adventure.
Yes,
right.
It ends with
they kind of take on this adventure to kill this monster.
They all kind of he basically Dracula runs away back to his home country. They chase after him. They go after him to Transylvania. Yeah, the main characters, all the main characters go after him. And eventually they chase him down. They get him, and there's 3 or 4 male characters that just basically kill him and get rid of him. And
the American cowboy dies.
There's all sorts of great
things that happen.
So I prefer that ending, honestly.
Well, it's a happier ending.
Yes.
Let's be honest. I know one of the girls dies in Dracula.
Lucy's killed.
Lucy
is killed. Lives.
Mina lives. Okay. Anyway, this is much more gothic, dark ending than the Bram Stoker Dracula.
So the ending, essentially, she offers herself up to him and he takes her, and then daylight comes and kills both of them.
Yeah.
Is essentially the ending. It ends with her embracing him in a sexual manner, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
weird. It's
weird.
It's kind of
it's kind of just crazy.
But you have to admit that it's stuff that you've never seen. This is not going to be you've never seen something like this. That's the best way to put it. I'm gonna dive down this rabbit hole real quick. Okay. The original Dracula book is basically a meditation on sexual impropriety. He's a sexual being that seduces people into doing essentially the unvirtuous sexual acts. Essentially, it's a metaphor for all that. Mm-hmm. And this is also, I think, grasping at a metaphor. So if she, as a teenager, gave herself up to this character, it's essentially saying that your mistakes in your youth come back to haunt you. There's a definite a sexual aspect to this, right?
Oh yeah, and they play on that pretty hard.
He's violating Thomas at some point, which you could say.
Yeah,
he's violating her at some point. And those violations will live with those characters for all of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a metaphor for sexual trauma?
Maybe. I don't know that I read that much into it.
Because it's ugly. It's not pleasurable. I mean, we're diving into basically stuff that most people would disagree with.
That's tough. Yeah. I don't know if that's a road we want to go down. I'm not sure if it's a road I want to go down. It's some it's some dark shit. That's what I'll say.
Do you want to kind of dive down this? Are you uncomfortable doing this? Because I was thinking it's a sexual trauma, some kind of sexual trauma that has haunted her entire life. If you think about it, and then she gets into a good sexual relationship and it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But then it rears its ugly head in her older
yeah, years. As time goes on.
And this is what happens. This is what happens with many, 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 many people.
Yeah.
That's how sexual trauma kind of happens.
It can kind of fade in and fade out kind of thing. I don't know.
I was thinking Orlok is a representation of some kind of sexual trauma.
I'll say this because she talks a little bit about one of her dreams where she's marrying death.
Yes.
I mean, basically where she's marrying death and she is happy. And she looks around and all of the church is filled with dead people. Mm-hmm. And she can smell them,
mm-hmm.
but she is happy. Okay. So what I'll say is this. I think all of us have like a really deep, dark demon. Life is kind of about playing to our better natures to not feed this deep, dark demon. Yes. Right. And so, she's voicing these struggles that she's having with kind of like this deep, dark demon. And so maybe that's what it's playing on, is that there is this inside of us, and the devil, which is kind of essentially like this Dracula character is kind of playing out, is that he's kind of playing to some of these deep, dark demons. He's using that as like his
leverage.
Yeah. His ploy with people. Anyway,
because that's the way the original Dracula book plays. There's a underlining sexual tension that is of a dark nature.
Yeah, and it's more undertone in the book.
Yes.
And it's explicit in this.
It's explicit in this.
For
sure.
Yeah, they don't pull any punches.
It's almost like a road you don't want to go down, especially when you're seeing a movie. A movie is supposed to evoke emotions, but then you're supposed to leave the theater going, "Whew, wow, that was intense," or "That was amazing," or whatever. And you're not supposed to really go down these deep thoughts after, especially in the dark nature of dark human shit,
Yeah. And there's definitely more of a feel good ending
to Dracula,
to the Dracula book than there is in this. You freaking have Van Helsing bopping a baby on his knee at the ending of Dracula, which is the baby of Mia and Jonathan. It's like it just and then you hear Van Helsing talking about how he's so happy that they overcome evil and that good things came in their future. Yeah, it's like,
and this one has a definite downer. This is not that. Yeah,
that you do not get that. Tons of people die. Like it's kind of complete mayhem.
Before we wrap this up, I think I want to talk a little bit about the look of this film. We have not gotten very beautiful films this year. I would say Dune 2 is the one that comes to mind. Wild Robot was a very beautiful film. So we have basically two really gorgeous looking films that came out this year, or that I saw. I'm sure there's been more, but this movie is a third, I think would be a third movie in the extremely beautiful look.
Mhm.
Every shot is gorgeous. Aside from the obvious, like, grotesque
Yeah.
parts of this movie, which are most of the shots of Orlok, because
Mhm.
he's a grotesque character. But
The shot of his hand shadow
yes, the
going
shadow,
over the city,
just
like
amazing,
there's
amazing
shots of
shot.
his shadow that are
That are
really,
really-
really on point.
The shot that has the curtains waving in the wind, and you see his shadow every time the curtains kind of, and that
Yep.
is like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Mhm.
Brilliant dreading shot. The shots of the castles, the shots of the exterior, the mountains and stuff like that. It's all just everything's really gorgeously shot. So his cinematographer, the man who's probably in charge of, or who would be in charge of most of his shots, is Jaron Blaski. I'm probably butchering his name, but I mean, he's shot all of his movies, The Witch, The Northman, The Lighthouse. So the guy's extremely talented and obviously has the ability to take like just a beautiful composition of a movie like this. And
Mhm.
I mean, the truth is like, it really has the gothic horror element to it. It's very rare that you see a movie and you think that this, other than the really grotesque and explicit scenes that this movie has, it technically could have been shot in in Victorian England, because you get this sense that everything's really authentic. It's really and there's even like shots like you were mentioning earlier, that it's like a blue and black look. It's not black, it's not quite black and white, but it's blue and black.
Mhm.
It's a very beautiful looking film, outside of the scenes with Orlok in it, and like his shadows. There's great.
Well,
work with it.
I mean, even with the dark and nasty scenes,
They're still
they're
composed well.
evoked. Yeah, it evoked what they wanted it to evoke.
Yeah, exactly. Check us out on social media, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just look for The Sword in the Skull. In the meantime, keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, learn more. We'll see you, brother.
See ya.